Okay, I'm Helene Gabelnick. I'm voter service chair for League of Women Voters of Chicago, and I'd like to welcome all of you to this briefing, which is on the election coming up. And I'll be doing a lot of the talking, but if you have a question, please put it in the chat. Maybe Sophie, you can manage that if we need to interrupt what I'm talking about. So let me share the screen. Slideshow from the beginning. Now, let me just explain. These are all PowerPoints, but at the end of the presentations today, I will make them into PDF files and I will send them to all of you. So you don't need to try to write down anything that's here, especially websites and links. You'll be able to get them after the event. So this is the longest of the ones I'm doing, and this is what I call general information. So we start out in Illinois. In order to vote, you have to be registered. However, Illinois is very lenient, flexible, progressive, whatever adjective you'd like to use, because you can register up to and including Election Day. Right now, if you want to register online, this is the link to do that. You have to be in the Illinois Secretary of State's database in order to register online. And this is the QR code in order to do that. You can also register at what is called the super site, and that's now in Chicago. That opened on Thursday, 191 North Clark. But if you register at the super site or any of these other places I mentioned, you have to vote at the same time. You can't just go in and register and then decide to vote at another time. So these are when they're open. Have any of you been there yet? No? Okay. This continues. These are just more of the dates. October and may change their time. Notice that you can also register there on Election Day. But on Election Day, it's from 6 to 7 p.m. It's not open late. You also have an opportunity to register to vote at early voting sites in each ward. And this is the link if you want to see them all. Again, these are the times. And again, just repeating, if you register there, you have to vote at the same time. To register in person, which is what you'd be doing there, you have to bring 2 IDs. One of them has to have your current address. But if you've moved like from another state or something, if you have an ID from the other state, that's fine as long as it's one of them. You do not need to have a photo ID. If you've moved recently, if you moved before October 8th, today, you use your new address and update your registration. On or after tomorrow, October 9th, you use your former address for voting, and then after the election, update your address. You can also, if you're concerned about your signature, when you register to vote, you sign the application, and that signature goes into the Board of Elections database. And that is used when you go in to vote. You sign something called a ballot application and you sign it. The election judges compare the ballot application signature to what's in their file. And sometimes they've changed. Somebody who registered when they were 18 and is now 58, the signature probably has changed quite a bit. You can also vote by mail, just abbreviating it as VBM. You can request the application online from Chicago Elections. The official deadline for receipt of this application is November 3rd. However, that's pushing it in terms of the mail, because they have to mail the ballot to you and then you have to mail it back. So if you are planning to vote by mail, I would suggest that you apply sooner rather than later. I was told that there were 100,000 people, voters, who got on the permanent vote by mail list. And so they're in the process of mailing out these ballots. So if you're on that list and you haven't received it yet, just be patient. This time for this election, we're all going to have 2 ballots. Each ballot has 2 sides. So ballot 1, side 1, and this is the order that we're going to be discussing things this morning, is the Illinois Constitutional Amendment, the federal and state offices, and MWRD, which is Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. There are 3 seats available for 6-year terms. So that's going to be on side 1 of the ballot. Side 2, there's a single MWRD for a 2-year term. The county offices, and you're going to hear about those in a few moments. The election of judges, you'll also hear about those. And one of our favorites is the Cook County Forest Preserve tax increase referendum. That's also on ballot 1, side 2. Ballot 2, side 1 is judicial retention. And I'm sorry, ballot 2, side 1, did I say that wrong? And then that ballot is completely judicial retention, unless you're in a precinct in a ward that has a special local referendum. So that applies only to very specific precincts. And I'll show you, there's a website link you can look at to see them all. The one I always like to talk about is the fact that a precinct can vote itself to be dry, or it can be, and I used to live in a precinct that was dry on the east side of Western Avenue in Beverly. So the fast food restaurants were on that side of the street, and the bars were on the other side of the street, which is in a different precinct. Occasionally, there are some residents who get upset with Wrigley Field, and they say they're going to vote that precinct dry. I don't think they've ever succeeded in doing that. This comes back to vote by mail, the ballots apply. The 2 ballots will come to you if you're voting by mail. You will receive the ballot. You'll fill it in with a blue or black pen, and they suggest using a felt tip rather than a ballpoint pen, because the ink from the ballpoint pen sometimes has a problem with the scanning material. You place your completed ballot in the envelope, you seal and sign it, and that signature gets compared to what's on your voter registration information. This is what the front of the envelope looks like. So here's where you have to fill things in. You sign and date and put in the information. Once you've filled it out and signed it, you return it. You have some choices. To secure drop boxes. At any early voting site, there will be secure drop boxes. Staff are supposed to be there to check to see that the ballot envelopes are signed. Ballots are removed from the drop boxes every evening using chain of custody procedures. If you want someone else to return your ballot, you can authorize another person to do that by filling out the form on the back. A maximum of 10 ballots may be returned by one person. This is the back of the envelope. Did you get help? And then this is the person who's helping you. You can also, of course, return them by United States Postal Service. The postage is paid on those. You don't have to put your own stamp on it. Ballot envelopes must be postmarked or time-stamped by or on November 8th. Just to highlight a few concerns that have come up in the past. If you try to apply twice for a vote by mail ballot, it won't go through. Only one application can be processed for a voter. You should receive an email when the application is received and an online tracking number when the ballot is sent. And this is posted on, these are websites, and all the information that I'm referring to can be found at those websites. What if you need to change the address? In other words, you applied and then for some reason you have moved or you're going on vacation or who knows what? You have to call them to tell them to send your ballot somewhere else. If you change your mind, and that's as an aside, even though early voting has started, maybe you want to wait and see what happens between now and the 8th of November. If you've already submitted your ballot, that's it. You can't get it back. If it's still in your possession, then you can turn it in and void it at an early voting site, excuse me, and then vote again. This is very important. They may not be submitted to election judges on election day. Each precinct, I should have said this before, when you go to vote in your home precinct, there are 3 election judges there. I'm sorry, there are 5 election judges there. And they cannot take your vote by mail ballot, that's sealed ballot. They will take it, it will be voided, and a new ballot will be issued. And generally, I volunteer as an election judge. Generally, the judge will let you take the ballot you've already marked because it's so long and involved into the polling place with you so you can just copy it onto the new ballot. But you cannot submit that ballot. If you requested it and you don't have it, or you haven't received it, or your cat ate it, or whatever, then you have to vote provisionally. The Chicago Board of Elections will notify you when the completed ballot is received, if they have your email address, and if obviously if you've applied online, they have your email address. They will attempt to contact the voter if there's a problem with the ballot. 3 judges will compare the signature on the ballot to the voter's registration signature. 2 judges must agree to reject the ballot. The board will attempt to notify the voter. What happens then is the vote by mail ballots are scanned after the signature is validated. The information on the ballot will be stored and consolidated with the voter's home precinct results on election day after the polls close. So it's not counted, it's scanned until the polls close. Vote by mail ballots, oh, it's my mistake there. On or by election day, but received after election day will be reviewed, validated, and scanned. This additional information will be consolidated to produce final totals. The Board of Elections certifies the results of the election 2 weeks after the election itself. So there can be changes up through that time. You can vote, obviously, we've talked about voting early, voting on election day. Election day is a state holiday. So state, city, park, library, and school sites are closed. They sometimes are used as polling places. Curbside voting is available, but this has to be requested. And this is the website if you need to request curbside voting. For that, 2 judges from the precinct come out and watch you vote, or not watch you vote, but give you the information of ballots in order to vote. On election day, you can vote at your home precinct, and this is the link for that, or you can vote at any early voting site. The language here is a little strange because if it's election day, it's not really early. So their names change. They're called vote centers on election day. And there may be additional ones. They've had them, for instance, at, I don't think they had one at Wrigley Field, but they had one at one of the sports venues. But for our purposes, just think of it as the early voting site. You can be an election judge. It's lots of fun from 4:30 in the morning to 9 at night. 16-year-old citizens may serve as election judges as well, and the board, of course, will provide training for you. This website is one that, if you're really interested in finding out what's going on, has absolutely everything on it. It has all the sites, the polling place, sample ballot, which you can download and print. You can view your status of your vote by mail ballot. You can go back and look at election results for 10 years ago and all of that if you're interested in pursuing that. So let me first of all ask, are there some questions right now about what I've just muddled through?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Thanks for the presentation. How can I see my signature that I originally registered with? Is it possible to see your registration signature?
You can see that when you go to vote. The people are using an electronic poll book, and the judges are comparing your signature to what's in the electronic poll book, so they can show you that. But other than that, I'm not aware of a way that you can see that.
So if you're voting by mail, you run the risk that your signature may not match.
Right, but then they are supposed to contact you if there's an issue. Sharon, did you have something? Unmute yourself, Sharon.
Muting, okay. A point of information for everybody, and please pass this on to people you know. 50%, I think, of Chicago precincts are new. So if you think that you're supposed to vote on election day where you voted in the primary of this year, that may not be the case. I would strongly recommend, if you plan to vote on election day prior to election day, you check where your precinct polling place is, or vote early if you don't vote by mail.
I should just add to that, however, that you have received one mailing, which is the new voter registration card, which has the number of the precinct, the ward and the precinct number, so you can look that up. The other thing, you will get another mailing, supposed to come out sometime this week, that's called the household mailing, and it should have on it your name, the local, your precinct location, and where you can, and your closest early voting location. So you should be getting that in the mail. Remember, the board mails things out to 1.5 million people, and that doesn't happen instantly. So I know I got mine, I think, a week after the initial ones went out. Margaret? Margaret? All right.
I haven't received my voter registration card. If I go online to check my precinct, will the information be updated there?
Oh, yeah, that was updated quite a while ago, but I don't know why you haven't gotten. I mean, I've had other people complain and they say they mailed it out. Mary Ann?
Yes, I'm the nameless person up there. If
No,
someone,
it says Mary Ann Nestler, you're not nameless.
okay, good, good. If a person registers online, did you say they
Yes.
must have they must be in the database? That is, they must have have a driver's license or a state ID already?
That is correct.
Okay, then if they do register online and go to vote, will they need to bring any proof with them? Do you know?
No.
No, okay, as long as they're in the database, that's it.
As long as they're in the database.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so our next speaker is Sharon Alter.
Okay, thank you. My brief presentation is on the proposed amendment to the Illinois Constitution. I want to deal with the text of the proposed amendment, which will be on the ballot. It's first on the ballot. Next slide, please. The text, if ratified, this will be section 25 of Article 1, which is the Bill of Rights. It's the Workers' Rights Amendment. And the specific wording, not explanation, but wording that you will vote on is the following. If employees shall have the fundamental right to organize and to bargain collectively through representatives of their own choosing for the purpose of negotiating wages, hours, and working conditions, and to protect their economic welfare and safety at work. The next sentence of this proposed amendment, next slide, please, says, quoting, "No law shall be passed that interferes with, negates, or diminishes the right of employees to register and bargain collectively over their wages, hours, and other terms and conditions of employment and workplace safety, including any law or ordinance." Local governments realize are supposed to comply with this. Including any law or ordinance that prohibits the execution or application of agreements between employers and labor organizations that represent employees requiring membership in an organization as a condition of employment. Next slide. So as not to belabor the arguments pro and con, I've simplified the pro argument and I've simplified the con argument. The basic pro argument is, if ratified, this amendment will protect workers' safety and the right to organize and to bargain collectively. The basic con argument, next slide, please. The basic con argument is this amendment is worded too broadly with the phrases, quote, fundamental right, end quote, and quote, no law shall be passed that interferes with, negates, or diminishes, and etc., end quote. There's a number of groups that are supporting this and a number of groups that are opposing it. These two lists are not meant to be exhaustive. It's only a list of the same number
Right,
for
here.
the pro and the same number for the con. The groups supporting this include the Illinois AFL-CIO. Well, back up, please. Okay,
Yeah,
the
okay,
Illinois
sorry.
AFL-CIO, the Chicago Federation of Labor, ASME Council 31, the Illinois Federation of Teachers, the Chicago Teachers Union, SEIU Healthcare Illinois, Indiana, the Teamsters Joint Council 25. I might add, the Illinois Education Association also supports this. Opposing groups include the Illinois Policy Institute. They're the group that's been running these Kana ads on television. The Illinois Chamber of Commerce, the Illinois Manufacturers Association, the Illinois Municipal League, the Illinois Association of School Boards, the National Federation of Independent Business, Associated Builders and Contractors. Next slide, please. In order to be ratified, the proposed amendment is required to receive either 60% support among voters specifically voting on this proposed amendment, or 50% support among all ballots cast in the statewide election. That's the statewide election for governor is what they use, because some people don't complete the ballot. For those of you who are registered voters, you should have received a postcard. Next slide, please. you should have received a postcard with the URL for access to a pamphlet information on the proposed amendment. By state law, the Illinois Secretary of State must have a pamphlet with the wording of the proposed amendment, the pros and cons, and the URL. If you did not get this postcard or misplaced it, is what I've listed here. And you can complete and access to it. You can print out the whole pamphlet. It's about, I forget, it's 4 or 6 pages. Not very long. As a point of information, the League of Women Voters of Illinois has an Illinois voter guide. For you members, if you get information from the state to access the Illinois voter guide, that Illinois voter guide does not, I repeat, does not list this proposed amendment first on the guide, even though it's first on the ballot. It's listed at the end of the voter guide. And the wording in that voter guide is an explanation, not the wording of the text, which I quoted this morning, which is going to be on your ballot. The pro and con, which I've listed, is not the pro and con that the Illinois voter guide lists. And so if you have questions about pros and cons, please feel free to ask me now. Thank
Okay,
you.
I'm gonna, sure, I'll stop Sharon, hang on.
Thanks.
I have a question, Sharon.
Sure.
Does the pamphlet define exactly what is an employee? Does it define what an employee is? And does it?
No,
Does
no,
it-
nor does the amendment. And the background to this is Illinois is not a right to work state. The background of the proposal of this amendment is to try to make sure that Illinois does not become a right to work state. And those groups who oppose ratification, including the Illinois Policy Institute, which I listed first, not alphabetical, support Illinois being a right to work state. Be aware, and I'm not trying to argue pro or con, I'm just trying to give you some background information. You will find that the Illinois Policy Institute and their coalition argue that property taxes will go up with this. There's nothing in the wording that says anything about property taxes. The wording is broad, as I mentioned, as a con, and open to interpretation. And ultimately, if passed, if ratified, there may be some litigation in the state courts on this. Chris, your hand is up.
Margaret,
I just wanted to say that not everyone who opposes it opposes on the basis that they want the state to be a right to work state.
I
So-
said the Illinois Policy Institute.
I
does.
understand, but that's just one, and I just don't want people to think that that's the criteria. That's my only comment is that.
Thank you. Mary Ann, did you have a comment?
I have a question. I'm concerned that that URL is going out about explaining this amendment. What happens to people who do not have computer access?
Well, Helena asked me, if one does not have computer access, and that can be a problem, one can go to a public library, or the postcard doesn't explain if you don't have computer access. The postcard lists several languages about this and then lists the URL. I'm assuming that the reason that I'm not defending, I'm just
Yeah.
assuming that the Illinois Secretary of State wanted to save money, which is why there's a postcard. To my knowledge, this is the first time that the Illinois Secretary of State has not actually sent the pamphlet. Usually the pamphlet is on blue paper.
Right. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And what also is for the Illinois League of Voters, it's not first on the Illinois
Yeah, you
Voter
would-
Guide.
Yeah. it
It's
mentions
after
that.
all the
Okay.
judicial offices, which is a
Okay,
problem.
Sharon,
with
Sharon,
that.
we're gonna get pushed here. We've said this and we'll say it again. We'll try to get it straightened out. Margaret Herring, did you have a comment, please?
Yeah, like in the last line, couple lines, it sounds like that union shops would be legal in Illinois. Where as a condition of employment, you had to join the union.
That's open to interpretation.
Okay. Because I know that's a,
Because Illinois law cannot conflict with the US Supreme Court decision. And there was the Janus decision of several years ago by the US Supreme Court on this.
yeah, it came out of Illinois.
Right, it did. Right. And the Illinois Policy Institute, their Liberty Counsel or Liberty Counsel attorney
Okay,
was the attorney.
Thanks.
Was there one more question? No, okay,
I
thank
don't
you.
think so. Okay, let's go on to some of the other things on the ballot that perhaps are clearer. I don't know. Sorry, share. So the next thing that I'm going to talk about is the federal and state offices that are on the ballot. This link here is a list of everything that's on the ballot in Chicago. So it's a very long document. It's 20-some pages, but it also has everything for the
Helene,
entire city.
Sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt. You're still showing the cover slide.
Oh, sorry.
You haven't gone to the slide. You haven't gone to the slideshow from the beginning.
I did.
No, you're not from the beginning. You don't have that screen on.
Sorry. I've got the wrong one on. I'm sorry. Okay, is this now? Oh, dear. Is this showing now or not?
No, you're now it says United States Senator.
Yeah. So if I go back up. It says United States Senator, right?
Well, now it says on the back. Okay.
Are we okay? Illinois general election, are you seeing that? Federal and state?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, so this is on the ballot. This is the complete list. And again, you will get all of these things, so don't try to write it down. Okay, the salaries that I've quoted here are the ones that I've found, and they may not be totally current. So this is just to give you a general idea. So for United States Senator, we have 3 candidates, Tammy Duckworth, Kathy Salvi, and Bill Redpath. These numbers here refer to the numbers that will be on the ballot that you get, and their parties are listed here. For governor and lieutenant governor in Illinois, they run as a pair. So we have J.B. Pritzker and Juliana Stratton, Darren Bailey and Stephanie Trussell. Scott Schluchter and John Phillips, Libertarian. So you may notice, some of you who've been around for a while, that the Libertarians have quite a few slots that they're working on this time, that they're running people for this time. Attorney General for the state of Illinois. Again, there are 3 candidates. Secretary of State. Again, there are 3 candidates for that. Comptroller. Treasurer. United States Representatives, and I'm doing these in the order that they're on the ballot, so it looks a little strange. In Chicago, there are 9 districts that have US representatives of the 17 that are in the state. 1 candidate has no opposition. Everyone else has no opposition. I didn't try to put up all the people there. If you're interested in seeing who they all are, the second slide has the document that has it all. Illinois state senators. These are the districts in Chicago. There are 21 districts. 14 of those candidates have no opposition. Was that the same thing here? Oh, sorry. Illinois state representatives. These are the districts in Chicago. 37 districts, 12 candidates have no opposition. So are there any questions there about the state? These are the state and federal offices. Sharon?
One point of information as a reminder to all of you. Because of redistricting, you may be in a different congressional district than you were in 2020. And the same thing with the Illinois State Representative and Illinois State Senator.
Yeah, so be sure to check your new stuff. Okay, the next person who's going to speak is Chris Mims, and you're going to share your own screen, right, Chris?
Right. Hi, everyone. I'm Priscilla Mims. Of course, I'm a member of the Chicago League, but I'm also the voter service coordinator for the Cook County League. And I hope all of you know that automatically, as members of the Chicago League, you're automatically a member of the Cook County League, just as you're automatically a member of the Illinois League and the US League. So the Cook County League, we focus on county offices and governments, and I should say county-wide offices and governments. So I'm going to cover 2 governments. First of all, the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. And these are elected county-wide. Essentially, the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District covers all of Cook County, with a few exceptions. And just to explain, the MWRD, as it's often called, is charged with, first of all, cleaning water in our rivers and keeping the lake clean, and also to help deal with storm water, so in flood control. So those are their 2 main missions. And they are $1 billion government that very few people pay attention to, but their role is very important. And as $1 billion government, they of course command a lot of money, and you pay for them through your property tax bill. So take a look at when you get your second installment this year. It's not a huge amount per person, but you are paying for it. So there are the commissioners on the MWRD generally have 6-year terms, and you are allowed to vote for 3 of the 5 people who will be appearing on your ballot. I'm not going to read them all to you. There are 3 Democrats, 1 Green, and 1 Republican candidate. Helene's going to talk about how you're going to find out more about who these candidates are to help you in turn make your selection of who to vote for. There is also on the ballot this time a vote for 1 candidate to finish out a previous 6-year term, and there's 2 years remaining. What happened was that Commissioner Deborah Shore, who had been on the MWRD for a number of years, she did not complete her current 6-year term, but resigned to become director of the Illinois Office of the Environmental Protection Administration, EPA, right? Administration. Anyway, so she had 2 years remaining on her term. And so we're voting on her, in effect, her replacement for the remaining 2 years. So there are 2 candidates for that office, and you vote for one of them. And that's 1 Democrat and 1 Green candidate. Then the other government covering is the Cook County government. And there are a number of offices on the ballot this year. First of all, to be elected countywide. So everyone in the county, both the city as well as the suburbs, are voting on the assessor, the board president, the clerk, the sheriff, and the Cook County treasurer. The assessor, of course, assesses our property, which is one of the, puts a value on it, and that's one of the factors that goes into determining your property tax bills every year. The board president oversees the board, as well as having a number of departments that report directly to her. But she is not over the assessor. They're independent offices. The one thing that the board president does have control over is she prepares a proposed budget. In fact, that has just been introduced. And so all the other officers present their budgets to the board, and there's usually negotiation. Sometimes the board president presents a budget that the individual office holders do not agree with, and then they make their case to the Cook County board. But there's also the Cook County clerk, has control, oversees records management, birth, death, marriage, as well as the recording of property sales and transfers, as well as elections in the suburbs of Cook County. One thing that for many years I lived in the suburb of Oak Park, and I had no idea that there were 2 election authorities within Cook County. But there's the Chicago Board of Elections for the city and the Cook County Clerk's Office election division for the suburbs. There is the Cook County Sheriff. That office has control, among other things, of overseeing the Cook County Jail, which is a temporary holding center for those who are awaiting trial, who have not been released on bail or their own recognizance. He also manages some people who have been released on electronic monitoring. He provides police services for the unincorporated areas, as well as having contracted with some suburbs to provide police services for their particular towns. And also he works with other police departments and provides services. So he, for example, works with the Chicago Police Department in some aspects. And then there's the treasurer of Cook County, and she basically sends out the bills for property taxes and receives the money back, but then in turn allocates it all to all the various different governments, schools, villages and cities, the county itself, and all park districts, library boards. Here in Chicago, we forgot that there are a lot of different entities that people in the suburbs vote for. Though there's many of those entities also appear on our property tax. So you can see there are 2 or 3 candidates for each one of these offices. Then there's to be elected by district. And I'm going to quickly stop sharing this screen and share a different screen to show you. Here's the Cook County Board of Review districts. And there are 3 districts that cover. This is the city map, but you can see that essentially the 2nd district is in the north. The 1st district kind of goes around, covers parts of the middle, and then the 3rd district comes from the south and goes somewhat through the middle. If you look on your voter registration card, or if you go to the Chicago Board of Elections, you will be able to find out where your particular, what district you are in. So in this case, though, it doesn't matter because there's only one candidate for each of these offices. The Chicago Board of Review, what they do is they take appeals if you do not like the assessed value that the Cook County Assessor has given you. You can appeal to this board, and then they will determine whether or not to uphold the assessor's view or to lower your property assessment. And from there, you can also go to court, or there's a state board you can also appeal to if you don't like that. They are like state senators in that they are elected for 2 4-year terms and 1 2-year term during the course of each 10 years. In this case, they're all up for re-election because we just did redistricting. 2 of them have 4-year terms coming up, and 1 of them has just a 2-year term, and then next time he will be elected, he or she will be on the ballot again. Oops. Not sure why. Okay, let me escape because I'm not. Oh. Okay, for whatever reason, am I still with you all?
Yeah, you are, but now.
Okay, I stopped sharing because it wasn't moving. So let me go back to my screen here. Okay, I'm not sure why it didn't go, but let's just go ahead and move down. So I'll just leave it at this level because for whatever reason, it wasn't working before. So to be elected by another group of people to be elected by district are the Cook County Commissioners or the Cook County Board Commissioners. They make up the Cook County Board. They basically are the legislative branch in the sense that they pass the ordinances, they help set policy for all of basically all of the governments. And again, I'm going to stop sharing here and show you the map of the Cook County Board of Commissioners, just to give you an idea. This is again just within the city of Chicago. Of course, they also cover, many of their districts go into the suburbs, and there's actually 3 districts that only cover the suburbs. But this gives you an idea of where they are. The 5th on the southeast, along with part of the 11th, which also tails in here and goes into the center. The 4th district, excuse me, I should have said southwest, the 4th district in the southeast, the 3rd district that kind of sneaks around up around north, the 2nd district that comes in and around 7th district. Here's the 1st district that goes to the west and comes into the city. And we've got 12th, 8th, 12th, 10th, and a little bit of the 13th, which goes further north. the 9th district, which is partly suburban, but this is the city portion that curves around. And finally, the 17th, which really goes mainly is suburban, but also covers a little portion of the city here in and around O'Hare. So back to this one. So these are all the various districts. Again, you would just be voting for that, those running in the district that you live in. And just as Sharon reminded you about the redistricting, you might be in a different district. So too is the case for both the Board of Review and the Cook County Commissioner. And I've only listed those districts that are within the city of Chicago. There are only 3 districts, though, where there's no choices: the 3rd, the 7th, and then the 8th. All the others, if you're in any of the others, you have a choice to make. So any questions on the MWRD or Cook County offices at this point? And because I'm still sharing my screen.
Chris?
Yes.
Chris, can you hear me? This is Debbie Halpern.
Hi, Debbie. Yes.
Hi. Could you please forgive me? I want to talk about Cook County Forest Preserves, and then could you do questions after that? Because unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave.
Oh, okay. So I should stop at this point and let you talk. Okay, go ahead.
If you would not mind, but it's still Cook County, so same theme. Okay.
I'm fine.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
That's fine. That's fine.
Start my video. Okay. Hi, everybody. I am actually calling in from outside, and I just want to say a couple of moments about the Cook County Forest Preserve referendum, which will be at the very bottom of everything that Chris is talking about right now. And it follows all of the Cook County elections and judges, etc. Cook County Forest Preserves is a separate government entity with commissioners. However, the commissioners on the Forest Preserve are actually also the commissioners on Cook County, the Cook County commissioners. So you will not be electing people for the Forest Preserves. What you are going to be asked to do is to consider a referendum that the Forest Preserves are asking for. So for just a moment, I just want to let you know that the Cook County Forest Preserves basically are like the national forests here in Cook County. They make up 11% of our county land. And just as Chris was talking about what the Water Reclamation Department does regarding helping with pollution and keeping the waters clean, that is precisely what the Forest Preserves are also doing. So for example, in any given year, there are over 25 million trees in the Forest Preserves, and they are eliminating an estimated 330,000 tons of carbon dioxide emitted from cars every year because trees soak that in. And it is so important. And in addition to which, they are full of wetlands and marshes, and they are filtering the water. They are helping to eliminate flooding in your basements. The Forest Preserves are doing wonderful things you can't even know about, in addition to the fact that they are the place to go for peace, nature, recreation. There are over 350 trails within the Forest Preserves that are throughout Cook County. And they also have nature centers, aquatic centers. There's even a zip line at one of the Forest Preserves. All that said, the Forest Preserves were first established in the year 1914, and it was advocated by Burnham himself to save the land in Cook County before it all became developed. And they have not asked for a new an uptick in their revenue since the 1930s. Nobody has asked for more money. We are this year and the League of Women Voters of Chicago and Cook County and the various, there's over 150 different organizations that are supporting this referendum. It was just endorsed this week by the Chicago Tribune and last week by the Sun-Times. And what the forest preserves are asking for is an increase of 0.025% increase on your property taxes, which for the average Cook County homeowner equates to about $1.66 a month or less than $20 a year. And that is all they're asking for in order to restore the lands that they have, to pull out all of the invasive species, to go over the trails. There are 62 million people that visit the forest preserves annually. However, during the pandemic, they had over 100,000 people coming through the forest preserves because it was the only place you could walk and breathe without a mask on and enjoy nature. So this is a very important referendum. I will also mention that the Chicago Botanic Gardens and Brookfield Zoo are also on Cook County property. They need capital reinforcements and everything needs to be updated. And they really need this referendum. So our Chicago League is very proud to endorse this. And I hope that everybody listening will also endorse this, as well as tell all of your friends, family, relatives, and coworkers to please vote yes for the Cook County Forest Preserve referendum. And you can find more information on the website that Helene can post for you. I believe it's called voteyesforestpreserves.org. I'm not sure at this moment. So on that note, I'm going to give this back to Chris and Helene, and I thank you very much for the opportunity to talk. Does that work, Helene?
That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to sign off now. Thank you so much, and I'm sorry, Chris.
Oh, no, they're quite all right.
Okay.
One thing I want to urge people, unfortunately, the referendum, because of legal requirements, has a very convoluted proposal on the ballot. It also is somewhat misleading because there's a reference to a 1-year limiting rate. It is not a one-year increase. It will go on because, of course, they continue to need, but we're still talking about a very minor increase to the ballot. So basically ignore all the wording, trust Debbie, vote yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and have a good meeting. I'm signing off.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Don, I think has a question, and before I go on.
Thanks. Very quickly, we heard what the rate increase is going to be. Does anybody know what the current budget is?
Chris can get back to you on that. I'm afraid
Okay,
we'll have
appreciate
to.
it. Thanks.
Yeah, and John, I will, and I'll get your information from Helene, so I can give you that information. I'll also I should be able to give you the proposed budget for next year, which I suspect does not include the referendum or has caveats about that because they don't assume that they're going to get it.
Thank you.
Yeah, Chris, I'll send you the information, but
Thanks.
I think we need to move on here.
Yeah, and
you have one more slide, I believe, right?
I do. One more slide, which is okay. The judicial elections. Okay, this is not retention. I want to stress that. These
I'll
are
talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. We're still on the first ballot going through here. And in each of these cases, there were vacancies caused by someone retiring or whatever. So in the primary, you may have voted for who should be on the ballot in November. Now we've got the November ballot. So essentially, though, it becomes very easy because there are no contests in the city of Chicago. So I've gone through and checked the vote for judges element listings, and Everybody is, fortunately, on the good side, all of them, at least on the vote by judges, got a
Yeah, but
widespread
you can't give
propulsion.
it the, nope, you can't say that. People
Okay,
can
well,
find that
anyway, you have
information.
no choices here. So these are the people who are going to be elected one way or another. And just to clarify, appellate, I think circuit court, countywide positions, sub-circuit, there are districts within there. And there's one contest in the 13th sub-circuit, but that's not in Chicago. So otherwise, all there. So I'm done at this point.
Okay, this is my last PowerPoint presentation, which has to do with judicial retention, local referenda, and candidate information. Again, here's the complete list of everything if you need it a second time. There are about 260 judges who have been elected for 6-year terms. 62 judges serving in the circuit court are on the retention ballot. They're listed in order of length of service. For a judge to be retained, they must receive 60% yes votes of the voters who vote for them. Just for your information, there also are associate judges in the system appointed by circuit judges. They hear any case except criminal cases, as it says. Local referenda, there are 17 local referenda which are on the ballot. Again, they're very specific. If they apply to you, you will find them on your ballot at the end of the judicial retention section. Now, in terms of candidate information, the following websites do not endorse, they provide information. So this is the Illinois Voterguide.org that we were talking about several times already. You personalize your ballot, and then you can see who you can take that into the voting booth with you. This is the QR code if you need to use that. And so I highly recommend this. We can come back and look at it again if people want to see it, but for now, let's just continue. WTTW will produce a voter guide, but that's supposed to be coming out 2-minute video presentations. That's supposed to be coming out in the next week. Voteforjudges.org. This is live now and current, but it has to do with Alliance of the Bar Associations, which have rated judges usually as qualified, unqualified, and highly qualified. Injustice Watch puts out an election guide. It will be posted, supposed to be posted on October 11th. So that's next week, the new one. If you go to this website now, you'll find their guide for the primary, but it will be updated. If you want something to do, you certainly should vote. You can serve as an election judge. You can still apply. 16-year-olds may serve, and training will be provided. Okay, the last thing, just in case you don't have enough to do at the moment, I just want to share one other thing with you. Okay, so this is what we've been doing today. These will be updated this week. But looking forward to February 28th is the upcoming municipal election. Petitions are now being circulated for mayor, city clerk, city treasurer, alderpersons, and you see different names for them. Their official title, I think somewhere, was alderpersons. We started calling them alders because it got a little confusing. And member of the police district councils. There are 3 people to be elected from each police district, and there are 22 police districts in the city. to a police district council. All those will be on the ballot in February. Petitions are being circulated now, so you may have seen, been approached by someone circulating a petition. You can only sign one petition for a particular office. So if you sign for X for mayor, you can't sign a petition for Y for mayor. Petitions will be filed between November 21st and November 28th. And then the fun begins. So hopefully we're going to be able to do a lot of candidates forums, voter registration, other activities that League is going to be involved with. But it's a lot. There are 50 aldermen, alderpersons, alder people. And at the moment, I think there were 10 people who've declared to run for mayor. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. So. Okay, are there other questions, comments? Thank you all so much for your patience with this. It's a lot of material and lots of strange nuances sometimes.